Hello and welcome to the Amonkhet standard season here on Cheap as MTG. All the cards have just been spoiled and we're bringing you a new deck today, featuring many of the new cards coming out of Amonkhet. So with no further ado, the card that originally inspired this deck is Glorybound Initiate. Glorybound Initiate is a 3-1 that when it attacks it may exert. It gains +1/+3 and lifelink. So obviously a 4/4 lifelink attacker on turn 3 is very strong, but the Exert trigger opens itself up to being abused if you can give the creature a way to not tap or to untap. Enter Shadow of Innistrad favourite, Always Watching. An enchantment that gives all your creatures +1/+1 and vigilance works great with Exert. The other part of Glorybound Initiate is that it's actually a human warrior, so it works very well with Thalia's Lieutenant. And as I was building this deck, I noticed there was a lot of strong red-white creatures with Exert that were humans. So here we have a red-white human Exert-themed deck. Naturally, these are all central pieces of the deck. We play 4 of each. Now on to the rest of the deck. For the rest of our creatures, everything is a human. And there's actually only one other Exert trigger. So starting with the 1-drops, we play 4 copies of Thraben Inspector and 4 copies of Soulscar Mage. There are arguably heavier hitters here, particularly Thraben Inspector being a 1/2 that doesn't really get any bigger on its own, but the card draw is quite important in a deck that can run out of steam quite quickly. We also play 3 copies of the new Honoured Crop Captain. This is a 3/2 for 2, which is a nice aggressive creature, and when it attacks, other attacking creatures get a boost to their strength, which is a very relevant effect in an aggressive deck. We also play 3 copies of Hanway Garrison. Hanway Garrison is particularly nice with Thalia's Lieutenant. Obviously, it gives you 2 more humans to put counters on, even if the tokens don't benefit from Always Watching. But it also means that if you have a Thalia's Lieutenant in play, when you attack with Hanway Garrison, Thalia's Lieutenant gets 2 extra counters itself. And finally, another new card from Amonkhet is Combat Celebrant. This card is quite the glass cannon. It's a 3-mana 4/1. 1 toughness means it's very vulnerable. But if you can attack with it with a decent board and exert it, preferably with an Always Watching out so it remains untapped, you're going to get an extra combat step, which means if you have a decent attack first time round, you can easily finish off a game. So I think it's worth playing a couple of the Celebrant. To round off the spells, we play 4 copies of Gideon because we're a white deck, or why wouldn't we? Gideon is just simply great in this kind of deck, producing tokens, under that emblem if we need it, also another aggressive threat. It's a very strong card, and sadly there's not really a budget alternative. Otherwise, for removal, we play 1 copy of Declaration in Stone to exile any pesky creatures, and particularly good against any like tokens decks, or if there's multiples of a single card out. We play 3 copies of Stasis Snare as our bread and butter removal spell. It can hit vehicles, it can hit any size creature, that's very nice. And we also play 2 copies of the new card Cast Out. Cast Out is, most of the time it will be a slightly more expensive Stasis Snare, but we're paying for the versatility here that Cast Out can hit any non-land permanent, so it can hit things like Dynavolt Tower if we really need it to, which is very useful to have in the main deck. Onto the mana base. The mana requirements of this deck are pretty simple. We're a 2-colour deck with no card really having a fancy casting cost, so we play 2 copies of Needle Spires. We limit it to 2 because we don't really want too many tap lands being an aggressive deck. 4 copies of Inspiring Vantage. Dual land that can come into play untapped is quite powerful. I also play 1 copy of Hanway Battlements, given we're playing Hanway Garrison. There may be an opportunity to meld every so often, and it's a very strong card if we do. Otherwise, the ability to give a creature haste until the end of the turn just makes our threats that little more potent on an empty board, like after a Wrath effect. And the rest of the lands are made up with 7 mountains and 8 plains. On to some sideboard options. It's quite difficult to suggest the best sideboard without knowing the exact meta that Standard currently has. So I'm just going to suggest some options for cards you may want to look at when building your sideboard. The first one is Glorybringer. Glorybringer is a great new card to come out of Amonkhet. A 4/4 flying haste dragon that when it attacks, you may exert it and deal 4 damage to a target creature. It may as well be called Gideon Hunter, because that's what you're going to want to use it for. Your opponent goes turn 4 Gideon, you go turn 5 Glorybringer. Obviously, the Exert trigger works really well with Always Watching. And as it's so good, you may be going, well, why isn't Glorybringer in the main deck? In the main deck, we've tried to be quite aggressive. We've got obviously got the human synergies as well. Glorybringer would be sideboarded in games where you sort of need to beef up, maybe a little games where you can go a little bit slower. But I think it is a great option in those matchups. Another sideboard option is Aven Mind Sensor, which is obviously a reprint in Amonkhet. This is going to be good against decks that are leaning on cards like Traverse the Ulvenwald and Attune with Ether. You can effectively turn off both of those cards. So you either turn off like tutoring for a creature or mana fixing, which can be quite powerful in the right matchup. I'm not saying Mind Center is necessarily going to be a game-winning card, but it's certainly going to be a good way to sort of lock your opponent out. And additionally, we also have Harsh Mentor as a new option. So there are going to be games where your opponent's got a lot of activated abilities. For example, vehicles. Exert is also an activated ability, so in the mirror, it could be quite useful. At its worst, it is just a 2/2 human for 2. So it has the synergies with Thalia's Lieutenant. So there's certainly some a range of options when you might want to bring the Mentor in. A further sideboard option would be Nahiri the Harbinger. Nahiri helps the decks become more mid-range post-board. She's versatile. Plus ability means you can loot away cards, which is always useful if you get flooded. And her -2 ability is a versatile removal spell for. It's particularly useful for enchantments. For example, like in the mirror, you can get rid of the Always Watching. Tapped artifacts like Dynavolt Tower. So she's a very useful card. You'd also want to consider a way to stop the Healy combo. The easiest ways to do these are with ways to either make the Felidar Guardian come in tapped or have a way like Shock in the sideboard to kill Saheeli. To make the combo, or just to stop the combo working, I should say, Authority of the Consoles or Thalia both do the same thing. Authority is cheaper, and as an enchantment, it's probably harder to interact with your opponent. Though Thalia has synergy with the deck, being a human and being a creature in an otherwise aggressive deck, so you may want to consider maybe both in the sideboard. There's also a reason you could stick Thalia in the main deck if you feel like your Saheeli matchup is bad. If you feel you need some form of graveyard hate, Watchers of the Dead is a new card printed on Amonkhet. That it's a 2/2 cat artifact creature for 2 mana that you can exile Watchers of the Dead, and each opponent chooses 2 cards in their graveyard, and they exile the rest. This is very good against Delirium decks, and also to an extent is useful against Scrap Heap Scrounger decks, because ultimately the Scrounger needs food, so if you exile most of the cards from a graveyard, they're only going to have like 1 activation. For longer games, the deck does suffer from a lack of card draw. To mitigate this, one option is Bygone Bishop. All the creature spells main deck have a converted mana cost of 3 or less. Therefore, there would be a lot of investigating going on, which would give you a card draw engine for the later game. It's also a 2/3 flyer, so it's a reasonable body on its own. And finally, if you want to be able to destroy artifacts or enchantments, and you don't want to have Nahiri in your sideboard, Fragmentize is a nice value removal spell for artifacts or enchantments that can hit the troubling artifacts such as Aetherworks Marvel or Dynavolt Tower or vehicles, and enchantments like Stasis Snare or Castaway, for example. So that's the deck tech. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. If you do like it, remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. There will be more Amonkhet standard deck techs coming out. In particular, there's a black-white tokens brew in the works that I'm quite excited about. Also remember, you can keep up with the channel on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We have all of those. They are all at CheapSMTG. Remember to follow, like, subscribe, whatever you do on social media these days. And yeah, do join us for future videos, and good luck at your Amonkhet pre-releases.